Hey guys, we're back again. A little bit of some insight into how to install one of the Australian Rod and Custom components front ends. This is their IFS setup, which we've talked about on numerous occasions through the raffle car build, but we thought we might try and show it in a little bit more detail and just give, I suppose, our opinions or insight on, how to install one. So what you generally start with is you'll look at when the cross member comes from Rod and Custom Components, all of this section here is all pre-built. So that comes in, and it does have a notch in that cross member. So what we then do is, depending on the vehicle we're building, whether it's fendered or highboy, or whether it's this model or say a 34, etc., you'll determine how far from your ride height point of view. I suppose just backtracking slightly, you want to always make sure you've at least got the finished height of wheels that you're going to have on the car. So don't, fall into the trap of putting a 23-inch tall tyre on the front, and then at the end of the build you're going to put a 26-inch tall tyre on it. Otherwise that's going to muck up everything you do here, and you're going to end up having to overly adjust, control arms to compensate for the difference in height. So they're things to think about early in the piece. What we then do is determine how far we've got to notch into this cross member and trim it accordingly, basically. So that'll depend on different models. You can see there's a little step up the top here. We've actually taken this one down the rails down into the cross member by about another 15 mil on top of where the notch would normally be. So that suited us for this one because we knew it was highboy. We wanted to maintain these control arms relatively level to the ground, but we had predetermined what our ride height needed to look like. So that was where we started. The rest of the kit is very straightforward. Other things you have to consider when you're notching it into there, you've got to make sure that over the back here you've got sufficient clearance for your steering rack. So those boots there, you probably want to have anywhere from 5 to 10 mil clearance underneath the rail there. That'll mean that the rack boot isn't pinching, and you've got no problem with the, your tie rod here ever fouling with the underside of the chassis rail. So might to a lot of people seem fairly common sense, but it's all these little things that you need to be aware of as you go through and start the build. One thing we do, and look, this is up to the individual, we tend to leave an original style cross member above the Rod and Custom Components cross member. That's your Model A or 32 style cross member that just allows us to pick up all the standard radiator mounting points and so forth. But also too provides a little bit more, I think, puts a little bit more engineering strength back between the chassis rails here, so you haven't got any undue loads or anything pushing on these uprights, especially if you've notched them in a little bit further. So we tend to over-engineer stuff here at Carl's Speed Shop, always have. That's the way my dad taught me when I was a kid. So at the end of the day, you want to drive a safe car, not necessarily something that's just focused on pretty. So yeah, so there are a few things to consider in your install of your Rod and Custom Components front end, your IFS. As I think we've said throughout the build, we've chosen to do some upgrades on this one with the Viking double adjustable coilover shocks and then the Willwood brakes. But and I believe these are options that the guys at Australian Rod and Custom are starting to now consider and offer to their clients. So we like to think in a little way we've sort of helped with the development of that, and now that they can offer, I suppose, a couple of different levels or upgrades to their clients. So yeah, and I can attest to the fact it drives really, really nice. I think we've got about 70 or 80 Ks on the clock now of the raffle car, so yeah, it's been really nice cruising around in it.